I'm on the trail of Britain's disappearing tea traditions. And I've come to the heart of London to meet Edward Bramah, a former tea planter and an expert on the history of the British tea industry.
The Dutch brought tea to Europe, to Amsterdam in 1610. And the Londoners didn't do anything about tea for 50 years. But then we opened a coffee house in 1652. They couldn't make enough money out of coffee alone, so they started selling tobacco. Then they started selling chocolate. Then they started to sell tea. And that's how tea was first introduced.
It surprised me to learn that soon after its arrival, tea found an unexpected role in preserving the nation's health, as in 1665, Britain was racked by the plague.
100,000 people died of the plague. And the next year we had a big fire, and the next year the women said, look, the sun's come out, for God's sake, take the children to the gardens. The entrepreneurs are opening up gardens, and I don't want my children to die of the plague. So the families walked to the tea gardens, and when they arrived at the gardens, they asked for the new drink from China, because everybody knew that to make tea, you had to boil the water, and therefore you didn't die of typhoid. And between here and Vauxhall, which also, of course, is on the river, there were 16 tea gardens on the south side. By 1800 in this country, virtually every house was drinking tea. And then when we started to grow tea in northeast India, Scotsmen, Welshmen, Irishmen, Englishmen went to plant tea and work the tea industry and build up this enormous trading of tea in London, which made London the world capital for trading in tea.
To help promote tea to the great British public, tea companies collaborated to create the grandly titled Empire Tea Bureau. Britain's colonial obsession with tea lasted over 300 years. Millions of tons of tea each year were imported through London's great East India docks. By the 1950s, Britain traded almost a third of the globe's entire stock of tea through the famous London tea auctions. The auction house continued trading for more than 3 centuries, until the final hammer fell in 1998.